Alright guys, so this is probably a review video for some of you and maybe some new information for others. But this is some of the stuff that you might want to keep in mind if you are a nomad looking for land. And I also had a lot of questions and comments on my last video about this, so we are going to get into that. Guys, so I'm going to be following up on some of your questions and comments, so bear with me. This might be a long video. I haven't done this in quite a long time, but this video was really fun and it got a lot of people interested, and so I just wanted to address some of that. But before I'm going to do that, I'm just going to say that yeah, this is nothing new. People who are, nomads or whatever, they get homesick and they decide they want to go back, or stuff happens because there's such an influx of people going out on the road. Then the powers that be, i.e. the government or whatever, starts to enforce things and make things a little bit harder, and it's due to the fact that people have abused the privilege, and so they have to kind of push back to protect our public areas and things like that. And also there's probably, a little bit of a control issue there. They want to control people. They want to know where you're all at, that kind of thing. So, it kind of pushes back. So people will say, okay, well then maybe we should go and be homesteaders because that's the second, best thing to be free. I have an opinion about that. I think that being a nomad and being a homesteader, since I've done both most of my life, they're pretty much the same. As far as freedom goes, and there's still going to be powers that be there that can do things and make it a little more difficult for people. But other than that, I mean, yeah, as far as freedom's concerned, for people that are like-minded like us, it's better than living in a crowded city or a suburb where you have a postage stamp sized yard, and you have neighbors and HOAs and all these rules and all these people telling you what to do. So being a homesteader is a lot more free. That being said, though, there's a lot of things that people need to remember. There's maintenance, and there's things like that on your house that that you forget about because you're living in a van and you just remember all the fun stuff and all the good stuff. Gardening can turn into giant projects like what happened with Ron and me. When we got back from our last trip, the weeds were basically waist high on me, and I had to weed eat a better part of 5 acres when we got back. And he had other things to do, so I had to do that. And that's just things that you have to do. Now, if it were me and I had my way, I wouldn't have a place in California, but this is Ron's home, and this is his, thing that he had before me. So it's on him whether or not he wants to keep it. However, we do travel a lot, and we have noticed that it is harder for us to camp and park in places that we want to be at. And so we figured, well, having maybe a second place would be a better option. That way we know if we want to go camping, we can always go to our own place. And so that's what our line of thinking is. So yeah, and so there's just a lot of things to remember on that, and that's why I made the last video, is because there's so many people out there right now in the van life space and in the nomad space that are talking about going basically back to the land, and that's what they called it back in the 60s. This isn't a new thing, it's a little bit before my time, but I've known people that did it because I grew up around people that were doing it, and yeah, it's just a thing. I mean, Western society ends up being kind of crappy for a while, and people just want to go out into the country and get away from it. And a lot of times the first thing they do is they go out and they live on the road, and then they go back to the land because they're trying to either find a place to be or they want to have some adventure before they settle down. So this is nothing new. This is just something that people are doing. And yeah, I just wanted people to remember that and keep that in mind, that, and it's happened throughout history. In every Western society, there's been people that said, don't like this technology, don't like these rules, don't like this and that and the other. I'm going to go back out into the woods. See you later. And so, you know, it's a human thing. We're all human, and this is what we're doing. I really loved a lot of the comments and questions you guys had for me. And so I'm just going to paraphrase some of these. And hopefully I don't butcher people's names too bad, because some of the names on here were really kind of hard for me to pronounce. So sorry about that. But anyway, that's just what happens when you make up a name for yourself on the internet. And more power to you, you know. But anyway, yeah, I was just really happy with a lot of the stuff that you guys brought up, and it's just things that yeah, we need to remember. And I'm just gonna put my little 2 cents worth in there and see where this video takes us. Okay, so the first comment that I wanted to mention was from Fernwick Chronicles, and they said it's about the ranchers still using the land. And if you guys didn't watch my last video, you need to check it out, because Ron and I actually went and looked at a lot of these places in the part of Arizona where a lot of the nomads are buying land right now, especially the famous ones. I know for a fact that Bob Wells is in that area, Camper Van Kevin, quite a few people. And it wasn't until we were hanging out in that area that I realized that that was the places that they were talking about. I had just been looking for land there for quite a long time, because I have some family that owns land in a place called Chambers, Arizona, in that area. And so I thought, why would you guys want to come out there? That's kind of weird. So I just wanted to check it out, and I come to find out it's an okay area. But so we were looking at places that were called ranches, and for all of those that are, you know, on the West Coast here and in areas that are subdivided and are turning into suburbs, they name places such and such ranch. So I didn't think anything of it. I'm thinking, okay, cool, there's these 20-acre parcels on this ranch. Well, come to find out, they are working ranches. After driving through there, we found out they are working ranches, and there are cows everywhere. So that's where this first comment comes from, was from me telling you guys about all the cows and all the working ranch stuff. And I have some prior experience with this growing up in rural Idaho, where it's not everybody's ranch and it's not all public land, but it's well known that it's free range. And yeah, you are responsible for your cattle, and people are responsible to keep themselves from hurting your cattle. But everybody knows that everybody's cows are just everywhere. And this is a similar situation, because here's a ranch and then there's public land, and now the rancher is subdividing a ranch. So that's where this comment comes from. Okay, so Fernwick Chronicles, I hope I said your name right, said, in my county, ranchers are responsible for any damage that their livestock do. And this is true. If somebody's cows get out and they eat your garden, they're responsible. Now, whether or not you can enforce that or have somebody enforce it is a whole nother thing, especially if you're out in the middle of the desert. Just keep that in mind. But yes, this is true. And it's probably throughout the entire United States, I would imagine. They are responsible financially and legally for anything that their animals do, damage-wise to your property. They also mentioned that in their county, a rancher was arrested because he refused to contain his cows, and they were damaging the neighbor's crops repeatedly. And so, yeah, you can't have that. You can't have your cows getting out and eating some other farmer's broccoli. Okay, if you guys have a deal where, you know, the cows get to be let onto the pasture after the harvest to kind of clean it up, that's different. Or if you know, and a lot of farmers do that, like they will make a deal with the neighbor, or they have their own differing crops within their own farm and they let their own cattle, you know, kind of clean up the mess. That happens a lot. So, you know, but in this case, it wasn't. And also on the flip side, like I just mentioned, if there's some ranchers' cows that are out, especially if it's in a free range area, which these places obviously for better of a term, is going to be free range. And if you accidentally run over somebody's cow with your tractor or your car or whatever, you're responsible you need to pay that farmer for that cow, because he could have made like $2,000 to $5,000 off of just that one cow that you now injured or killed. So, you know, you got to keep that kind of stuff in mind. So that was a good one. I'm glad you guys brought that up. And another comment I got from Fast Eddie Love Muffin, like the name, he says that even remote property can come with restrictions and requirements, like a septic that can cost more than the property did in some cases. And this is true. This is very true. And especially the closer to the coast in any place that you get, they are stricter about septic for some reason, probably because more people are going to be moving into that area. Who knows? My advice to you, though, is to do your due diligence and find out what the regulations and restrictions are on the property before you sign the papers. But just know that if you are going to go that route and you are going to buy someplace where you have to have conventional septic, please do yourself a favor, and I'm speaking from experience and from also anecdotes that I have heard. Please make sure that you get a 4-bedroom septic. Spend the money, spend the extra money, because trust me, in the long run, it's going to be better, and it's also going to make your property have more value if you do sell it, even if you don't do anything to it. If it's got a septic that is big enough for a 4-bedroom house instead of just a 2-bedroom house, you're going to be way ahead of the game, especially if you decide that the tiny house ain't big enough and you're having a lot of kids and you're going to have a bigger house. A lot of us that watch my channel are done with the kid thing, but you never know. Yeah, just do yourself a favor, and if you do have to have a septic permitted and put in, make sure that it is for a 4-bedroom house. Okay. And also, yeah, and remember, there's always going to be covenants and restrictions, especially in places that are more desirable. HOAs are another problem, and POAs, you know, property owner association, is just like an HOA. You know, so you got to do your due diligence on those. A lot of these places, though, that people look at in the desert, one of the reasons why there are at least a POA is because you have to maintain the roads and the community wells that are in the areas, because some of these places have a community well. And if it's just for that, and if it's just for you know, and just make sure that they can't do like rules and regulations on you, it might be worth it to be in a place like that where there's a centralized well. So in case you can't drill a well right away, or whatever the case may be with your water, you can always go there and haul some water. So they're not always a bad thing in the desert. So just, you know, do your research on that and figure that out. Okay, and this one comes from a subscriber I've had for a very long time, and I'm very happy that she watches and comments on everything all the time. I appreciate her. Niche Fan says and reminds us that about finding a way to have water on your property, and we just kind of mentioned that. She also says to check on zoning for land use, which is a good thing, and make sure that you don't need to gain access through a neighbor's land. Landlocked properties can incur a huge cost for access, and this is very true, especially if the land has never had an easement to it. So my rule of thumb is try to find a place that has that's right next to the main road, and then all you need to do is make a driveway. I mean, right next to the main road. Second best would be a place that already has a road to it through neighbor's property. However, you need to make sure that that wasn't just on a spit and a handshake, or if it wasn't some family member's property that let the other family member drive through. You have to make sure it's a legal easement, because that could cause a lot of problems down the road, or even right away once you buy that piece of property. So no landlocked or a place that's already got an easement, a real easement. Just make sure of that. And if you can, especially for our purposes as nomads, because we're trying to keep our life simple, we don't want a bunch of complications, you know, don't buy something that's landlocked. You could probably get it for a couple $100 an acre, but really, is it worth it? So yeah, just weigh your options. But hey, man, if you're rich and you got a bunch of money to burn and you want to do that, or you're just going to fly your helicopter down and land in the middle of it, that's fine. don't worry about it. Buy whatever you want. But yeah, niche fan, that's a really good point to bring up. Make sure you guys don't look at landlocked land. Okay, it's going to be cheap. It's going to be tempting. It might even be in some really desirable areas, but landlocked is not a good thing. Okay, Ray Santos asked about county rules in Yuma about camping in particular. Yuma is a really cool place. Like most of Arizona, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that you're going to have a permit for long-term camping on your property. Most places in the United States do not allow primitive camping even on your private land unless otherwise stated in like zoning rules. So they don't want people living in tents on their property. You can do it, but really they just discourage it. They don't want you to do that. And they can enforce it if somebody complains. So just keep in mind, you can't just go there and pitch a tent. Arizona, for most of the counties, have a long-term permit use for RVs. You can go get a permit from the county saying that you're going to be there long-term with your RV, but once you do that, you're going to have to put in some type of septic. A lot of counties will let you do an alternative system, which is like, composting toilet or something like that. But just keep in mind, if you're just going to camp on your property, you're still going to have to put in some type of way to deal with your waste. If you're only going to use it for maybe a couple weeks out of the year, you don't have to worry about it. They're not going to do anything to you. You might have to get a permit to use it for more than a couple of days at a time, like maybe a 2-week permit or something like that. But most of the time, it's going to be no big deal if you park there for a few days on your way to someplace else and it's your property, your campsite. You don't have to worry about it. But my advice is to just do your due diligence with that too. When you're checking out the property, you're going to find out all of the county zoning and rules and things like that. But what I like to do is find out before I even look in a county to see, how strict codes and rules and things like that are, because like I said, Ron and I intend to use it for mostly a campsite. So we don't want to get in trouble with that. And we, a lot of times, like to stay gone for a month or two or hang out in a place for a very long time. So we're probably going to have to get a long-term permit once we do find something. So there's that. And also the Yuma area, if you guys are interested in it, it's wonderful in the wintertime. And there's all kinds of really cheap and free places to stay down there. So my suggestion is, if you like a place like that, find a way to stay and check it out to see if you actually really want to be there. Rather than spending money on it and then, buying a place and then finding out that you don't like it and jumping through all these hoops to have a place. Maybe you don't like it there. So that's another advice that I give to people. Just go someplace, check it out, check out the vibe, see if you fit in, see if you're going to like it there first before you even decide that you're going to buy something. Especially in Arizona, because they have a lot of public land there. They have a lot of long-term visitor areas and things like that. And there's a lot of places, like, you just have to really look and do your research, because a lot of places that you go in the United States, there's a way to just hang out in a place and check it out for a while. There's always a way. So you have to just kind of figure that out. It's going to be harder than it used to be, but just go there and see if you actually like it first before you commit. Even go so far as to rent an RV space somewhere, or rent a place at a long-term campground place and just hang out there for a while to see if you like it. Because if you don't like it, it's going to suck. You bought it, now you got to get rid of it. No, so just don't do that. Just go hang out and look at a place. Cheeky Monkeys says, getting stuck at a home base, it's all about controlling the masses. And yes, and I had mentioned that before. It's just kind of like they're pushing back because there's so many people, especially since COVID, that discovered that being on the road is freedom. They don't want a bunch of people hanging out and being gypsies and doing whatever. They want to basically have people paying their taxes and doing what they're supposed to do, and just be in their little place. And I get that. There is a thing to it. But if you do it the right way, you can do it both ways. You can have your cake and eat it too if you do it right. And also, if you are a homesteader or whatever, it's different. yeah, you're stuck on your place, but you're doing what you want to do. And, isn't that the definition of freedom, if you're doing what you want to do as opposed to what you think you should do or what you have to do? So, I mean, it just depends on the person, and your opinion and the situation and what you're doing. So, but that is a good comment. They, you know, they are possibly attempting to control where the population is going. So, I get that. Yeah. And then somebody also made a comment, and I'm sorry, I just don't know if I can pronounce your internet name here, but it's Winnaday Adata. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. I can't really say it, but they said age and health is probably another reason why a lot of nomads are going off the road. And yeah, and I can understand that because some of them are getting older. Um, it could be an issue. However, it takes a lot of work to maintain a place. And if you don't have friends that are going in on you with this, or family or something like that, if you have really bad health issues, you're better off not having a place to take care of it, in my opinion. Unless, living in a van is just a real hardship for you because you have mobility issues or something like that. But man, I'm telling you, it was a lot of exercise for me to weed eat all this stuff up and down hills and just all these things that we do every day. And people comment on like how, fit that Ron and I look. And yeah, that has something to do with like we make an effort to eat healthy and exercise, but at the same time too, a lot of it is because we have to take care of a big piece of property. 5 acres doesn't sound like much, but it is if you live in fire country and you're always having to clear brush and cut down limbs and, cut up trees that have fallen over and on and on and on and on. It's just a lot of physical labor. And if you're on a homestead, it's a lot of physical labor. And if you are healthy in the first place and you want to go do that, do it, because it's going to help you stay healthy. Trust me. But if you already have like mobility issues and health issues and stuff like that, that are really kind of, I don't know. I mean, maybe you need to get some rehabilitation first and then go and get your homestead, because it's a lot of work. Unless you're just, figured out a way to like have just a place to park or something like that. And it, isn't that much maintenance. If you can do it that way, that's great too. But yeah, I'm telling you, like age and health, I mean, I don't know. I think that's why you see a lot of older folks on the road, because it's just easier to maintain a camper than it is, even just a postage stamp yard. I mean, and if you're in town, you got to keep your yard pretty. I mean, people, because I've had that happen to me before. Like, it was one of the first houses I'd moved into after I'd, turned 18. And yeah, and we didn't have yard equipment, and so our yard looked bad because even though I weeded and stuff like that, we couldn't mow our lawn and stuff properly or anything like that. It just looked terrible. And I literally had some lady knock on my door and complain about me not taking care of my yard. And I said, I'm sorry, lady, but I don't have any yard equipment. This is my first house and I don't have any way to mow my lawn or anything. So after that, she was really nice. But yeah, it just was, so that's just something you need to keep in mind. If you are close to other people, they're going to be complaining about how dirty your yard is. So, yeah, because there's a lot of nomads that are talking about buying stuff in a smaller area, in like smaller acreage, kind of in a neighborhood. Well, you're gonna have to deal with all that neighbor BS too. So you're gonna want to maintain some type of status quo. I don't know. And if you are looking around in a neighborhood and it looks kind of dumpy and gross, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere, that might be the neighborhood you want to live in, because they don't care how everybody's yard looks. So, I mean, just an FYI on that one too. So, but yeah, so age and health is, yeah, that could be an issue. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you kind of need to be a little bit physically fit to take care of a big piece of property. So yeah, and I have some suggestions too, that maybe if you guys want to come off the road, like I said in the last video, maybe some friends can get together and share the land. Maybe you could share it with family, just people you trust. maybe that will help with some of the cost and some of the maintenance, things like that. If you truly are a lone wolf, a lot of this stuff is really going to hit home to you, because you're going to be out there by yourself taking care of the piece of property, or not, just depending. I mean, it's up to you, but yeah, there's just, to me, I think there's just a lot of work and responsibility that has to go into having a home base. So there you have it, guys. There's some questions and comments, and I really appreciate that. It really helps to support the channel, and it also gives me feedback and fodder for other videos, so I really appreciate that. Keep them coming, you guys. Yeah, hopefully this kind of stuff helps you out. It's just stuff to think about, and this isn't a new thing. Like I said before, you know, people go out on the road and they go back to the land, and then they go out on the road and they go back to the land. So, you know, it's just a human thing, and it's just going to keep happening as long as we're here. So yeah, guys, keep the questions and comments coming. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you got something out of this. And if you want to support my channel, the best thing you can do is like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And all that good YouTube stuff. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, bye.